Sports, where there's no 150 entry sharks you're competing against, and very winnable prize pools of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 every single night. Top prize, not full prize. So there's good money there, but you don't have to go ahead and know how to use Cruncher, know how to run 150 lineup crunches every single day. Nope, 10 entry max over there at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. And guess what? If you use the link that our trusty social media guy, Brett, is going to drop in chat once he hears me say this. Thank you, Brett. You can get 50. No, that's actually one I'm going to do later. You get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, the YSRPs. They can be used to play on the site as real currency, and then you can withdraw the money if you wanted to. If you wanted to, your winnings that you would win from your YSRPs as real money. Use the code AWESOMO when you sign up. Use our link and get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. But also enjoy playing somewhere where you have more of a competitive edge if you're hand building lineups and you still enjoy playing that way. That is Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. By the way, apologies for being late. I'm in an active tornado warning right now, which is kind of weird because I'm in southeast Pennsylvania. We usually don't get all this, Alex, but here we are. And it's hailing quarter-sized hail outside of my window right now.
Man, that's crazy. A lot of respect to you coming on the Deeper Dive because I know a lot of people, they'd be in their basements right now. If you have to make an evacuation at any point, don't let us stop you.
Yeah, you'll know why I left. On my bucket list is chasing tornadoes, but I want to get one of those like armored vehicles that have the spikes that stick into the ground. Adam, you know what I'm talking about, right?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Really? You've never seen those?
No.
The tornado chasing monster beast vehicles? Oh, they're great, man.
No.
But tornadoes are dangerous, and a lot of people in the Midwest right now are in really bad shape, so clearly not making light of it. But if we do lose power, and if I do disappear, you know what happened. Anyway, I'm Dave Locker, and that fine fella next to me is Adam Scher and Awesemo himself, Alex Baker. Boys, we've got a 9-gamer today. And Alex, I'll throw it to you first because you are, when it comes to weather, you factor this heavily. You even gauge or calculate the probability of postponements. What are we looking at here across the league with these 9 games and once again some bad weather in the Northeast?
I'm running behind a little bit on my meteorology today, but I heard there are some tornado warnings in Philadelphia, so that makes me a little bit worried for that game. And I'll go on right now, and as we go to the games, I will give you a rundown of what I'm expecting.
All right. Adam, anything you're looking at here? Any games you're fading as a result of the weather?
Not fading, at least as of right now. I think that the Philadelphia game has some weather issues, as you can probably attest to, and the Baltimore game looks like a potential chance for a delay. But both of those look like they could definitely change between now and lock as well.
All right. Yeah, it's really hard not to like Philadelphia's offense in this one. We will get there, but we'll start with you, Adam. Baltimore and Detroit. John Means, Ryan Carpenter. This is what we call a battle of the juggernauts. 2 stellar southpaws towing the rubber at Camden Yards. I am stoked for this one. 5.3 implied total for Baltimore, 4.8 for the Tigers. What do we have here, Adam, starting with pitching? I guess the question I'd ask you first is, we know that Ronaldo Lopez on DraftKings is going to have some ownership. He's pretty cheap, but he's also pretty bad. No one on this slate has allowed as many home runs. We'll get there when we do. But do you have any interest pivoting to a virtually unowned John Means against the K-heavy Tigers, or is this somewhere you're avoiding pitching altogether?
I'm not planning on really getting to pitching here. You have, in addition to Ronaldo Lopez, you also have Pablo Lopez, who will be popular and cheap in a good spot. But with it being a 9-game slate, I think there's going to be enough hitting spots for me to be different that I don't really need to go there. Plus, there is a chance of an in-game delay. And John Means and Ryan Carpenter don't really seem like the kind of pitchers that I really want to take that kind of risk on. So as of right now, I'm not expecting to get to either one. I think if I did go to one, I'd actually be more inclined to get to Carpenter. Not that I think he's any good, but he's $1,500 less than Means. And if you're using him as a pivot as an SP2, he at least gets you an extra bat or two, as opposed to the guys above him. You can pair him with Snell really easily, for example. I'm always willing to play starting pitchers that are down around 5K, no matter how bad they are.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, neither of these guys are particularly good But the offenses that they're facing aren't great either. Alex, what are you doing with hitting in this game? A high total for Baltimore, above 5, approaching 5 for Detroit. Both teams can run out some really righty-heavy lineups against these lefties in a very homer-friendly park at Baltimore.
Yeah, first I'll talk on the weather a little bit. What I'm seeing is that right now on the radar, there isn't a lot that's really threatening the Baltimore area. However, the forecast models, the percentage chance of precipitation, are showing that there is going to be heavy rain in the area during game time. So in this situation, what I do is I'll wait about an hour before the game starts, and if I start to see that system develop in the radar, then I will X that game out. Otherwise, if I don't see it being threatening in an hour, I'll probably just leave the game in when I'm making my lineups. What I'm seeing is, as far as bats, is both teams are. It's a little site specific on Yahoo. The Detroit bats are just like jumping off the page of value. I mean, it's just like ridiculous value. Probably the best I've seen on any slate. They have the team total of 5.3, which is way above average for them. So you can kind of see where they might be low price compared to their potential performance today. On FanDuel and DraftKings, they're also very good values. A little bit more specific to which batters we're talking about. And on FanDuel, the Orioles are priced quite well, and on Yahoo they're priced pretty well, but not nearly as good as Detroit.
So what you're saying is you're not huge on a Renato Nunez that costs $5,000 on DraftKings.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even worse is Dwight Smith, who costs $4,700. We have him at 0.2% ownership, so if he doesn't have power or stolen base potential really above average, so it's kind of crazy. But I guess maybe if you think Ryan Carpenter is that bad, you could go contrarian there.
Yeah, I hear you. I think you mentioned a lot of the site-specific stuff here. I totally agree. But like Trey Mancini, for example, 38 on FanDuel. On Yahoo, you're getting him at a really good price. A lot of these guys, Hanser Alberto on FanDuel's cheap, but DraftKings, Adam, it is definitely tougher to get Baltimore bats, where Detroit bats are coming in at a significant discount from Baltimore in this same game at the same park.
Yeah, but I like Baltimore in tournaments there almost because of their price tags. I think that it will be tough to get to them. I think that they do have power. I think that Ryan Carpenter is bad. Detroit's bullpen's given up, been weak enough this year that you have upside throughout the game, which I think is probably part of the reason for the over 5 implied run total for Baltimore. Mancini, in my initial crunch on DraftKings, Baltimore was my 5th highest owned stack. Getting a lot of Mancini, getting a pretty decent amount of Nunez, getting a lot of VR. And then kind of just spreading out ownership to the rest of the guys to fill out those stacks. Keon Broxton, someone who I think is a pretty appealing play because he does have power, he does have speed. He also has a massive strikeout problem, but Ryan Carpenter doesn't strike out a lot of guys. So I like taking power hitters with contact issues against pitchers like Carpenter. So I'm getting to actually more Baltimore than Detroit. I do like Nick Castellanos a lot. I think that Goodrum is a decent play leading off. But I just think that Means is a little bit better than a lot of projection models do. I like the movement on his pitches. I think that he's someone who maybe could improve down the road in terms of his results. So I'm not looking to get to him, but I think that I'm just a little bit lower on Detroit than the field probably will be.
Fair enough. I feel the same way about another team on this slate that we'll get to. But first, let's talk Philly and St. Louis. Aaron Nola, Genesis Cabrera. Let's start with Nola, Alex. He's looked better lately. One thing I find really interesting about him is his swinging strike rate is only 9%. It's really not that great, but he's striking righties out above 25%. And no one in the league has recorded more called strikeouts than Nola. He has 32 called strikeouts this season. And he's always done a fantastic job of placing the pitches where batters aren't going to swing and aren't going to think it's a strike. So he's one of the few guys that doesn't miss a ton of bats that I still have interest in because he is great at getting those called Ks. 9K on FanDuel, or DraftKings, 89 on FanDuel, and 48 on Yahoo. Nola to me against the St. Louis team that is running out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lefties. Well, I'll count Cabrera righties. I'll count Cabrera because he doesn't count as a hitter. Seems like an exploitable matchup at his price. What are your thoughts on Nola here against the Cardinals?
I think he's definitely one of the best pitcher options for the night. I think you made a really interesting point about the called strikes, and I think that's why I like the stat that you guys frequently mention of swinging plus called strikes. Because with pitching, there's always some deception involved. But one of the ways that a pitcher could use deception is having it land in the zone where a pitcher or the batter thinks it's going to be a ball, and that's just as valuable as getting a swinging strike. And what we're seeing is on the year, Nola struck out about a quarter of batters, and the Cardinals team strikes out well above average. Their lineup today, I have projected to strike out about 25%, which is about 10% higher than average. So you take a good pitcher with a good strikeout matchup, and you're in a pretty good spot. The only concerning factor is that the Cardinals are they have a pretty good offense, so their team total of 4.8 is a little bit high for that price tag you're going to be paying for Nola.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I just think Nola's price here is more than reasonable enough in a spot that I think he can put up solid numbers and get good run support. Adam, thoughts on Nola, and then let's transition to this Phillies offense against the pitcher who was allowing almost 3 home runs per 9 to righties at AAA.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a scary spot for Nola, just because the Cardinals are a team of such good hitters, and the hitting weather here should be pretty good. But I do think the price tag's reasonable for him. He's got a right-handed heavy Cardinals lineup, 26.4% strikeout percentage against righties so far this season, 26.6% since last season. Does a much better job of keeping the ball in the park as well. Been hit really hard by lefties this year, but really hasn't had struggles against righties at all. So I do like Nola. In my initial crunch, he was coming in as my third pitcher behind Snell and Bueller on DraftKings, which I don't think is really surprising. So I think the spot's perfectly fine for him. The price tag, I think, adjusts for this matchup. As far as the offenses go, though, I absolutely love the spot for Philadelphia. You mentioned the home run issues that Cabrera has had at AAA, and you have a lot of right-handed power in this lineup for the Phillies, but also Cabrera's had issues with walks throughout his time in the minor leagues. And we talk a lot about the Phillies being a team that drives up pitch counts and works deep in the counts, forces pitchers to throw strikes. And so there's a good chance here that Cabrera is either working behind in a lot of counts and, throwing pitches that are very hittable, or he's putting a lot of extra guys on base, which eventually obviously leads to more RBI opportunities for a Philly stack. So there's a couple of different ways I think for them to get here. And the main takeaway is that I just don't think Cabrera is someone that we should be expecting to pitch very well here. I think that he was called up to fill this rotation spot, to fill Waka's spot, more so for service time reasons. He was already on the 40-man. They don't have to bring up one of their actual good prospects that isn't on the 40-man yet. So I think that it's more of a logistical thing why he's in the majors than anything talent-based.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's a good point. But if it's logistics, man, it's not going to look very logical tonight after he's on the mound. I mean, look, anything can happen. I said to you earlier today, he'll probably throw 6 scoreless innings. But honestly, anyone that's allowing that much power at the AAA level to righties, I mean, you're talking about 10 home runs in 31 innings against righties. I don't know what the batters faced was, but I can assure you it wasn't many. It's almost 3 home runs per 9. Alex, aside from the weather that, is something we need to monitor, you've got McCutchen, Segura, Harper, Hoskins, Realmuto, and then even guys like Franco and Kingery towards the bottom of the lineup that have some more power than others, but a lot of righties in this lineup. It should be a long day for Cabrera in his major league debut.
Yeah, I think the Phillies offense, if the game goes, is in a really great spot. A team total of 5.9, very high for them, facing a pitcher that not projected to be very great. As far as the weather, I'm looking at it now. It looks like the heaviest storms are passing north of the city now. It looks like in about a couple hours, a heavy system is going to pass through the area of the ballpark. So that does cause some concern that there could be a delay in this game. or the other option is they could delay the game right from the get-go, even though it might not be raining, and then just wait out that system. I do think a postponement is possible if it gets worse than it's projected to be currently with the radar. But if you're feeling like the game is going to be a good idea to play, then I think all these Philly batters are in great spots, especially the top 5.
Yes, me too. Any other thoughts on this one, Alex or Adam, before we move on?
No, it covers it for me.
Yeah, I think so. Philly, one of my favorite teams. Super high total here. It's continued to climb throughout the day. There's nothing not to like. Tampa Bay, Toronto. Adam, we'll start with you. Blake Snell. It's really amazing. I'll let you go forward with it. I know we talked earlier this morning. I was amazed to see in a lot of these plate discipline numbers like contact, outside contact rate, swinging strike rate, called plus swinging strike rate. Snell not only leads the league in them, but is head and shoulders above the next guy. It's crazy, but you have more numbers on him, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if you Josh and I talked about it a bit this morning too. If you go through pitcher leaderboards this season, you're basically going to get Blake Snell at the top of all of them, or at least in the top couple. Like it's him and Garrett Cole in most categories, and then a drop to the guys like Chris Sale and Strasburg and Scherzer. He has struck out over 36% of hitters this season, which obviously is really good. Leads the slate 36.5%. The walk percentage has come down again to 7%. His K minus BB percentage is 29.4%, which in the context of all the pitchers who pitched today is 4+ percentage points higher than next highest, which was Paxton. 2.58 xFIP. He's second in PCRA behind Garrett Cole. He is first in called strike plus swinging strike percentage at 36.9% among all starters who have thrown 750 pitches or more. That's just ahead of Sale and Cole, or it's 2.5 points ahead of Sale and Cole. Just having one of the best seasons in baseball by far. And now he gets a nice spot against Toronto, a team that strikes out plenty, doesn't have many good hitters in their lineup, and is missing Vladimir Guerrero today. So just a really, really good spot for Blake Snell, who's basically matchup proof anyway.
All right. My God. They just said for a specific neighborhood in a neighboring town to get in their basement, like a neighborhood, a small neighborhood. Yeah, that's where my mom lives. So
shit.
Yeah, I'm in contact with her. She said she just heard a train sound, like the sound of a tornado coming through the neighborhood, and now the ambulances are wailing everywhere. So yeah, I think it's passed, but that is some scary shit right there.
Yeah. Wow.
God. I text her, I was like, hey, I don't know where Brittany Farms is in Chalfont, but they're saying to get in the basement. And she's like, yeah, I live there. So, whew, God, I'm not used to this stuff around here, fellas.
Nah.
We get thunderstorms, not a lot of tornadoes. Anyway, Alex, Blake Snell's expensive. He's expensive everywhere. But he's also fantastic. Like, this guy's unbelievably good. I actually think his strikeout rate could rise going forward based on a lot of these peripheral numbers. Are you paying for him today against a bad Toronto offense?
I think that you guys nailed it. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. I think my strategy is going to be site-specific today. On DraftKings, he grades out as a 2.2 points per dollar according to my projections, which is above average. So that suggests that lineups that have him in are going to have much higher projections than ones that don't. However, on FanDuel, he's slightly below average points per dollar. On Yahoo, you have enough flexibility with $7 guys that you can get him in even though he's expensive. But on FanDuel, I'm finding a lot of other options that are preferable to Snell. That doesn't mean I'm not going to have him. I think that you can make great rosters with some contrarian bats paired with an expensive pitcher, but there is an advantage to going for a cheaper pitcher. And there are a couple on the slate that are jumping out at me as great options.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you. I do think it's easy, as you guys both pointed out. It's not that hard to get to Blake Snell on a slate like this. Now, I do want to ask you this, though, Alex, because it's a question that a lot of people have been mentioning lately, or just kind of a statement that people have been making. Is there anything in your opinion to fading the high end pitchers? Just it seems like often so many people over the last year plus have been saying playing high priced pitching is not worth it most of the time. Do you have any thoughts on that? And do you just play whoever's best on a given night?
I think that coming up with one size fits all strategies in fantasy sports is really counterproductive because each slate is so different.
Right.
Tonight, I think one of the things on DraftKings I've noticed across the whole season is that some of these high-priced pitchers aren't priced as high as they have been in the past, and that makes them a lot easier to roster, and that makes them more profitable because you have higher projected lineups, and you're not sacrificing as much edge with getting the cheap bats, which aren't as high variance as some of that expensive bats. So I think that in general, it really depends on the slate. Tonight, on DraftKings and Yahoo, he's much easier to fit in than FanDuel, so I'd be more likely to have him on those sites.
All right. Someone just rung my doorbell, and there is a massive thunderstorm and hail outside. This can't get any weirder, fellas. What about bats? I'm sorry, by the way, to get a little bit off topic. Just trying to make sure I stay alive. Adam, what about bats here? Or if you want to talk Trent Thornton, we can do that too. He's striking lefties out a lot, but he's also been tuned up by them. When he misses his spots, he misses bad, and he's been pretty hard in the home run department as a result.
Yeah, I don't see myself getting the Thornton. There are a couple of risky pitchers in that price range where if that's what I'm looking to do at low ownership, I'd rather get to them. There are some left-handed power bats in the Tampa lineup that I think match up well with Thornton. They're actually all hitting in the top 4 as well, with Brandon Lowell getting a lineup boost. Kiermaier actually up to 6th. So Tampa Bay's lineup actually came out really well for if you're looking to get to them. Austin Meadows is really expensive, but I think is in a good spot. Nice power upside for Choi and Lau as well. Not a priority for me, but if I were going to bats in this game, it would be the lefties from Tampa Bay.
Oh, snap. Did we lose Laffy? He ran into his basement?
Yeah, I guess so.
Hold on. Let me see if I can... All right, I subbed him in for his picture. Oh, he's back. All right.
I thought you'd keep talking for me. Maybe do me a favor.
Oh,
but I guess not.
I thought you evacuated, man.
I didn't realize you had left.
I was preparing for the worst.
Yeah, look, I know I'm being unprofessional. It's my sincere apologies. That's over with. All right, Alex, bats here, and we'll move on.
I mean, I feel like I gotta ask you who's at the door.
I don't know. They're gone. I watched them start. They started walking away. I've never seen them before. I know all my. I don't know.
I mean, I used to go door to door, like fundraising, like so I could totally picture it being.
That's
like
what I thought. It was
like they just send you out every day, while they're damned.
Dude, I thought the same exact thing. They're coming out for like the junior high relay race for unit. I don't know, man. It doesn't make sense. All right.
Well, back to baseball. I think that I'm going to rule out Toronto as an option. They aren't priced very well, and their projections aren't very good because they're facing such a good pitcher. Tampa Bay, a team total of 4.6 isn't very inspiring, but what I'm seeing is the ownership is about in line with their chance of being the best stack of the night. So I have some interest. Definitely not a top stack, but I think that if they fit in with your lineup with the other guys you like, then I'd endorse it.
All right, let's keep it moving here. We got 5 games to go, or 6 games to go. This one shouldn't take too long. We'll talk pitching. I'll start with you, Alex. Bumgarner and Pablo Lopez, San Francisco and Miami. I'm taking a stand coming in lower on Bumgarner here in this spot in tournaments, just because I think there is a ton of good pricing in that same range. And while Miami isn't good, their active roster K rate against lefties is below 20%. And Bumgarner is, pretty average in the strikeout department at this stage of his career. It's actually Pablo Lopez that I have a lot of interest in. Been brilliant at home. Giants are terrible, and he's not expensive. What are your thoughts on this pitching matchup?
I think both pitchers should be projected to do pretty well today. Bumgarner, as you mentioned, he's not that easy to get to, and I mean, facing the Marlins is great for pitching because they're such an anemic offense. Their team total today is 3.6. They don't strike out that much though. And what's jumping off the page at me on DraftKings is that the price of 9,900, you could spend another 1K and get Blake Snell, and he's so much better than Bumgarner. On FanDuel, 9,700 is I think the clear play in that price range is Walker Buehler, who we'll get to later, but Lopez, he's way less price, 6,600 on DraftKings, 76 on FanDuel, and 33 on Yahoo. And I think facing the Giants, they're also a really bad offense. He's at home. The one thing about the Giants that's concerning is they don't have a lot of easy strikeouts aside from the pitching slot. So I wouldn't project Pablo Lopez to rack up strikeouts tonight. But I think that given the Giants have a team total of 3.9, you can definitely feel pretty safe rostering him at a low price.
Yeah, me too. What about you, Alec or Adam?
Yeah, I'm there too. I'm not getting the Bumgarner. Just not a great strikeout matchup as far as the Marlins go. And Bumgarner's strikeout percentage, while it has overall it's up almost 25% this season, he still only struck out about 22% of righties, and every hitter except Pablo in the lineup is right-handed. I think that he's just priced a little bit higher than I would like. As far as Pablo Lopez goes, though, I don't see a lot of strikeouts, but I do think it's a good park. It's a bad San Francisco offense, and he's just cheap enough where you don't really need a lot out of him to make him a good play when you consider the bats that you can get in there, and you consider that you can get to Blake Snell with him, or you can get to Walker Buehler and still get good bats. So I do expect to have a lot of Pablo Lopez.
So do I, and I have no issues with it. He's striking out almost 30% of batters at home this season, which is pretty wild. I expect some regression at home and on the road, but it's not surprising that he's better at Marlins Park than he would be anywhere else, and it's just a good spot. Bats for you, Alex?
I'm kind of interested in rostering the San Francisco bats just as a game theory play, because when you see those low-priced pitchers with high ownership, that creates a opportunity for some negative correlation between your lineup and everybody else's. The only problem is that the Giants just aren't projected to do that well today, and the ownership isn't really low enough to justify that strategy on any of the sites.
Yeah, I'm with you. Adam, do you have any interest in bats in this game?
Not really. I'll point out that Starlin Castro on DraftKings is 2,500 batting cleanup. He's at the very least, I think, a spot you can go to save money in cash. He's not the kind of guy that has, tournament winning upside really, but it's a nice salary saver play. Not a whole lot else I'm interested in. Like if I'm looking for a leverage stack, I have a lot more interest in leveraging against Reynaldo Lopez than Pablo.
All right. Let's talk about Atlanta and Washington. The Braves total, Adam, rose from 5-2 to 6 throughout the day. They had the highest total on the slate, actually, and should be expected to put some good runs up here against Gossman. What are your thoughts on batters? If you want to talk pitching first, against Sanchez. If you want to talk pitching first, we can do that. But if not, we'll go straight to hitters.
Yeah, I don't really have anything as far as pitching goes. I think Gossman's improved this year over last year, but it's not a spot or slate where I really feel like I need to get much Gossman in. I don't see the need to get to Sanchez here in a tough matchup either. As far as the Atlanta bats go, though, I do like the spot. I think Sanchez has actually been good against righties this year, which is kind of surprising, but isn't allowing much power to them, and he's not striking them out, but he's allowed, a 109 ISO, a 294 WOBA, and his expected stats back that up. He's been a lot worse against lefties than righties, but it's just so many good hitters in this Braves lineup. And I think a big reason for their implied run total probably has to do with Washington's bullpen being absolute trash. Like that's pretty much nightly, like 2 or 3 runs that you can tack on at the very least. So I think that it's just a really high upside spot for them. You have really good hitters in Acuna and Freeman and Donaldson. Austin Riley's been fantastic since coming up. And then, Swanson, Markakis are both perfectly fine hitters as well. It's just a really high upside spot. So I'm getting to them as like a top 3 stack on DraftKings right now.
Yeah, I'm with you here. Alex, what are your thoughts on this one? You can speak overall, pitching, hitting, and everything. We didn't really touch on pitching, but if there's anything you like, we can get there. I just think Gossman's a little pricey, and I'm not going to Sanchez. Maybe you have different thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like you guys aren't taking into account that this is an Anibal Sanchez revenge game.
How many teams has he been on?
Well, this is the most recent team he's been on. So, like,
gotcha.
isn't that the maximum revenge
Right,
index?
of course. Of course.
But anyway, I think that the Braves team total of 6 is pretty high, and I like the values on the different sites. One guy that's always jumping off the page is Acuna, above average in every category, good power, good stolen base upside. So I love him as a one-off or a part of your stack. And a couple of guys are jumping out in price. Matt Adams, he's only 2,400 on FanDuel and 9 on Yahoo, so he's a potential salary saver. And we got Tyler Flowers at $7 on Yahoo, so that minimum price slot with a great offense. He's even got some decent numbers for a catcher. Not going to wow you or anything, but he has hit some home runs in his time, I suppose. So I think given you have to roster a catcher on Yahoo, he's pretty easy to slot in for like a cash game.
Yeah, I agree. I would have preferred Brian McCann just with that lefty righty matchup. Sanchez, let me ask you this, Adam. Sanchez has actually done a good job of limiting right-handed power this season. I'm not really too concerned about that. Donaldson in a very good spot. Most of these guys, Acuna, Flowers, of course. But do you like the lefties more here in Freeman or Markakis? Would you like this more if we had more lefties, or are you not at all worried about the fact that we have so many righty spots?
I would like it more if they had more lefties, but at the end of the day, I just have so much respect for guys like Acuna and Donaldson.
Sure.
And Riley, Swanson even this year has improved. So it's just so many tough outs combined with so many bad pitchers waiting to come in behind Sanchez. And the fact that while he has been good against righties, even going back to last year, it's still not like he's a pitcher that is super consistent and that you really are scared about the matchup. He still doesn't strike them out. It's hot, it's humid, it's Atlanta. So it's just a spot where I think that the reward outweighs the risk for me.
All right. I don't disagree whatsoever. I want to talk about the White Sox and the Royals here, though. Before we do, I want to let you know that you can get 50% off your first month at awesomeo.com. All premium subscription, half off, just by using the promo code Deeper Dive. All one word, not two. Deeper Dive. Get 50% off your first month at awesomeo.com. That'll get you the ownership projections that we talk about on every show, the player projections, not just for baseball, but for all of our sports, MLB, basketball when it's here. Yeah, that's right. We got WNBA content, NHL, PGA, NASCAR, MMA. Just read it off the list. We've got it all. We also have the Top Stack tool, which is pretty awesome, and we use it every day. The Fantasy Cruncher add-on, Fantasy Cruncher Pro, the lineup builder. Man, the show's not long enough to talk about everything we got over at awesomeo.com, but you can get all of that half off. Just use the promo code Deeper Dive. Once again, all one word, Deeper Dive. And also, we've got a pretty awesome giveaway happening here for the NBA Finals. And if you're not a premium sub, I would highly suggest, even if you are, I guess I don't know how it would work. Alex could help out with that, but you can win a free year of all access pass, free all access subscription for 365 calendar days, full calendar year, plus a one-on-one coaching session with Awesomeo himself. If you guess the closest number of total points the Warriors and Raptors score in game one, it's a $699.99 value. So go to the pin tweet at our handle at Awesomeo_com. It's the pin tweet. Check it out. You got to retweet and reply with your guess and follow our handles that are on the tweet. Very simple to get a free $700 value for all access for 365-day subscription. Also, Awesomeo.com. And Alex, hey, they get a one-on-one coaching session with you, which might be better than the whole subscription itself.
Yeah, we couldn't even put a value on it because I don't offer it. But I kind of like this. I like this giveaway because there's that game theory element that is so relevant to DFS because there's like a few hundred people that replied so far, and you have to guess the right number of points. The over/under is 213.5. So if you go close to the over/under, you have a better chance of getting the number right. But you're probably going to be splitting it with multiple people, and then it's just a coin flip. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
All right. We move on. Royals, Chicago White Sox, Ronaldo Lopez, and then we've got our boy here, Glenn Sparkman, heck of a name, on the bump for the Royals. As far as ownership goes, Ronaldo Lopez is going to have some popularity, Adam, and I think, we're talking about a guy that, because he's cheap and has a little bit of K upside, that's why he's coming into play. Ownership has come down a bit from earlier in the day. It was 32%. I might lose power here. It's flickering, just to be clear. But this is also a guy that is super homer prone. He's allowed 14 home runs on the year. Left-handed hitters have battered him all season for power. Righties have 2, not as much, but they have. Are you getting to Ronaldo Lopez, and how much? And when you mentioned leverage stacks with, expensive Baltimore team on DraftKings, the Royals are one to me that makes a whole lot of sense in that respect too. They're expensive, but Ronaldo Lopez has the ability to implode at any time. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so I mean, from a point per dollar standpoint and even an upside standpoint, Lopez is a very reasonable SP2 option. He has strikeout stuff. He has good stuff at times, at least. He's inconsistent, but he's really, really cheap. And so everything we had said about Pablo Lopez also applies to Ronaldo. I think the spot is scarier. I think that he probably has a better path to strikeouts, though. So he came in basically tied with Pablo in my initial DraftKings crunches as an SP2. I expect that they will both have the majority of my cheap SP2 ownership, but I have a ton of interest in Kansas City in part because of Lopez's projected ownership, and then also just because I think it's a good spot for them. Lopez has really struggled with power overall, but in particular lefties. You have Mondesi, Gordon with power from the left side. O'Hearn has some power. You have good right-handed hitters in Merrifield, Hunter Dozier. Jorge Soler has some power, but also Lopez struggles with holding runners. He's allowed 6 stolen bases this year. He allowed, I think it was 14 last year. And you obviously have a ton of speed, at the top and the bottom of this order for Kansas City, with Billy Hamilton batting 9th. So in addition to it just being a spot where I think that they're in a good home run spot and a good stolen base spot, you are passing a large percentage of the field if they do go off, because such a high percentage will have Ronaldo.
What are your thoughts on this one, Alex? Because it is a situation that there's going to be ownership on Lopez, and there's also potential leverage spots elsewhere, especially on sites where the Royals aren't very expensive. But then again, all of the other sites outside of DraftKings, Lopez isn't really going to have ownership, so it kind of counteracts that if you were looking to get leverage over the field like you would on DraftKings. How are you approaching this one between Lopez and Sparkman?
I like the idea of going for Royals as that leverage play versus Lopez, but man, like some of these prices are off the meter. Like Alex Gordon 4,800, like Hunter Dozier 5,100. Unless these guys have been like doing a ton of steroids, I probably won't be that interested. But unfortunately, there's no way to know. But Reynaldo Lopez seems like a pretty good option. He's been efficient on the year, averaging more than 24 batters per game, strikeouts 21%, about average. So it's about an average matchup. But the thing that's standing out is the price tag of 5,900 on DraftKings. It's probably the only side I'd end up with him. So I think he's a pretty reasonable option. And then the White Sox, there are a few batters that are really great values. So I think that kind of gives you the basis to stack them. So Yonder Alonso and Eloy Jimenez are both pretty sick values on all the sites. And then on FanDuel and Yahoo, Lurie Garcia leading off 2,600 and 9. For a team with almost 5 team total, that's a pretty great spot, and he has some stolen base upside.
All right. Adam, you want to add anything here?
No, I think that it's kind of an appealing spot for the White Sox because Sparkman doesn't miss a lot of bats, and it's a team that has plenty of power and a lot of swings and misses. But against pitchers that pitch to contact, normally I'll be taking those hitters, but not really getting to a whole lot of them. I think that Jimenez in particular, Alex mentioned, is a good value. He has plenty of power and he's cheap. I'm not really getting a whole lot of the rest of them, though, just because for the most part they are expensive. And whereas Kansas City is giving me leverage against a large percentage of the field, Sparkman's not going to have ownership. So if the White Sox have a big game, I still need them to be like the highest scoring team, and a bunch of other stuff to go right. Whereas with Kansas City, if they are the highest scoring team, that's already like a quarter of the field that just got X'd out.
All right. Anything Alex, do you have anything else in this game and any strategy notes you'd want to point out here? Because I do think this one, at least on DraftKings, is probably a kind of critical game as far as tournaments go.
Normally on DraftKings, I might be interested in Glenn Sparkman as salary relief. Doesn't have a great point per dollar, but the fact that Lopez and Lopez both are cheap and just a little bit more expensive than him makes him pretty much unplayable, I think.
All right. We've got 3 to go, about 15 minutes. Live before lock coming up after this. Chicago Cubs, Houston Astros, Kyle Hendricks and Wade Miley, Alex. Hendricks, a much better real-life pitcher than fantasy. He's going up against a hobbled or really skeleton crew of a Houston team. No, of course, still no Altuve, no Springer, no Aledmys Diaz, no Carlos Correa in the lineup either. And when you talk about a lineup really being thinned out, that's exactly what we have here with the Astros today. That said, you're not exactly getting a significant discount on Kyle Hendricks either.
Yeah, I think Hendricks is priced way too high. The Astros projected lineup I have as being significantly worse than average, other than, well, you have Derek Fisher, who strikes out a ton, but then under him you have Bregman, Brantley, Gurriel, and Reddick, all who have way less than average strikeout rates. And if you face them all 3 times, as you'd hope, like, that doesn't really make you very inspired that he'll get a lot of strikeouts. On the other side, Miley, he's been pretty lucky on the year, 3.3 ERA, 4.4 xFIP, so not giving up nearly as many runs as he could have. Not great at strikeouts, and the Cubs lineup also is pretty formidable, so I'm not really on the pitching. As far as batting, I think Houston has some great value bats. One that jumps out is Derek Fisher leading off for 2.1K on FanDuel and 7 on Yahoo. A little bit more expensive on DraftKings at 3,700, but this guy has big stolen base upside, so I think that he's playable in GPPs for sure. And you can build a pretty nice stack on DraftKings. On FanDuel, the team is priced a little bit higher, but they're also more contrarian. So I think either site you could go there, but on DraftKings they may be a little bit overowned.
Adam?
Yeah, I'm not getting into a ton here. I agree that the price tag on Fisher on FanDuel and Yahoo is really appealing. On DraftKings, it's fine too, but there's several guys in that price range. Josh Reddick, I think, is reasonably priced as well. They're definitely a cheap stack, but it's just that there are a lot of stacks on the slate that I really like, and I do have some respect for Hendricks as a pitcher, not so much as a DFS play, but just as a guy that's good at getting outs. I don't see myself getting to a lot of Houston here, but I would rather get to Houston than the Cubs, I think.
Yeah, someone actually commented on my deep dive article today. I'll put the tournament stacks at the bottom of it after the write-up. And he said, out of curiosity, do you really like 9 different tournament stacks for a 9-game slate? I listed 8. I think you counter on not 9. But I mean, Adam, there are a lot of teams that are in really, really good spots against pretty rough pitchers. I mean, if you were to list off, I could list off a lot of these teams, and these aren't even the ones that you'd be getting at like super low ownership. So you mentioned you like a lot of stacks. For a 9-game slate, there are a lot of really high upside hitting options today as far as stacks go.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the way that I go about it, it ends up coming down a lot to our projected ownership, that last half hour before lock, where I end up coming in at. But if you're just taking like a slate overview and looking at teams that have a really good spot, there's a lot of them, like you said. And, while Houston does still have some talent, it's a watered down lineup in a tough spot, in a park that isn't good for hitting outside of home runs to left field. So it's just not super appealing.
Yeah, I agree. And Alex, there's also a site-specific nature to a lot of these teams as well, especially tonight. Some of them just stack better on one site than they do on the others. I didn't find myself getting to a lot of Cubs or Astros. What about you?
I haven't built any lineups yet, but the as I mentioned, I think the Astros are pretty. You can get them pretty easily on DraftKings. On FanDuel, they're a little overpriced, so it's kind of this trade-off between popularity and value. So you're gonna have to manage that. On either site, they're not really jumping out at me as being amazing. On for the Cubs, there just isn't a lot of value. Projected for 4.9 runs, that sounds pretty good, but on the slate, there's numerous teams that have higher projections and equal or better value price tags.
All right. Adam, anything to add on this game before we close it out and get to the last two?
Nope.
All right, let's kick it off with you then. Robbie Ray, Jeff Hoffman, Colorado and Arizona. It's funny because even when Coors isn't your favorite team to stack, you've got a guy in Robbie Ray that he's very good, but he's always had a propensity to give up some homers. Colorado is a team that has a lot of, or at least two really good right-handed hitters when it comes to facing lefties. And Robbie Ray hasn't gone past 6 innings once this season. He hasn't made it through the 6th inning in 9 of 11 starts this season. So it's very reasonable to assume that he doesn't last very long here at Coors Field tonight either, even though he has such immense strikeout upside. How are you approaching it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's obviously a risky spot. Anytime you go into Coors Field, it's risky anytime you roster Robbie Ray. But the thing that there's a couple things here that I like. For one, the lineup the Rockies ran out, it may seem like a little bit more dangerous since it has Mark Reynolds in there over Daniel Murphy, but it makes a big difference in terms of strikeout upside. Mark Reynolds since 2017 struck out 31.1% of the time against left-handed pitching, compared to 19% for Murphy. So that makes a pretty big difference with him hitting in the middle of the order from a strikeout standpoint. Suddenly you have Story at 28%, Reynolds at 31, Ineta at 23. Ball's at 33, Tapia's at 30. There's a lot of strikeouts in this lineup, and so that makes me interested. The price tag is affordable. He's only $8,200 on DraftKings. On Yahoo, he is 37, so affordable on both sites. And he has the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate this season. So the upside is very clearly there. He struck out 30.4% of hitters. Like, a lot can go wrong, but I just think that we haven't projected for low enough ownership where I expect I'll be a little bit over the field. I think that he's a reasonable pivot to Aaron Nola, who is projected for a ton of ownership and is in a dangerous spot in his own right. I think that Ray just gives you a ton of tournament upside.
Yeah, that Nola ownership came up a lot throughout the day from what it was earlier. Meanwhile, Robbie Ray on DraftKings is way lower, all the way down at 8%. What are your thoughts here, Alex? Is Robbie Ray in play for you at Coors?
Yeah, I think he's definitely in play. I really like the strikeout upside, and I think runs are so based on luck in MLB that the chance that he has a good game is pretty high in my estimation. And I think that he's a good pivot on FanDuel from Pablo Lopez at the same price point. A much more talented pitcher, gets more strikeouts, and the lineup he's facing also has a propensity to strike out. The only big knock against him is that it's in Coors.
Yeah. And he really doesn't go deep into games whatsoever.
Yeah.
But he does have the strikeout upside to mitigate that. I don't have an issue with it at all. But Alex, I do always have interest in guys like Arenado and Story when facing a lefty at Coors. And I actually thought it was interesting that Story's down to 5,200 on DraftKings. He does strike out a lot, but He and Arenado at the top of that lineup just have crazy numbers against lefties going back, several years now.
Yeah, I think the Colorado, although I recommend Ray as a GP play, Colorado is an obvious stack as well. They're definitely not priced up to Coors level prices as we're used to because I think the site's adjusted for the pitcher matchup. One guy that really is jumping out is Mark Reynolds at 3,500 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel and Yahoo he's cheap as well. All in all, the stack is priced pretty reasonably for both sides. So I think that if you go to either side, like you have a great chance of having the highest scoring stack of the night. But you're not exactly being contrarian. One guy that I think is notable is Will Castro leading off for Arizona, projected for 40% ownership on FanDuel, which that seems a little insane, but the price is really good.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I'm there too. Like, this is Colorado and Kansas City are the two teams where I am recommending the pitchers, but I also will have exposure to the stacks. It's the Rockies and Coors. It's a pitcher in Ray that walks a lot of hitters, can very easily get himself in some trouble, pretty early. Arenado and Story are obvious, really good plays against left-handed pitching all the time. Reynolds is really cheap, carries some pinch hit risk once they get Ray out of the game. You could pretty easily see Daniel Murphy or Ryan McMahon coming in. So that's like a concern to keep in mind for Reynolds, but the price tag's really cheap. I think that there's a chance you get Colorado as a full stack, maybe a little bit under-owned, because most of the ownership will just go to guys like Story, Arenado, and Reynolds. So if you have a stack that maybe excludes Reynolds and goes with like Dahl, Desmond, Rogers, or Tapia, Dahl, Desmond, or something like that, you're just contrarian already.
All right. What about Arizona hitters, Adam?
I think Jeff Hoffman's pretty bad. I think that his pitch mix is a really bad mix for Coors Field. He's really curveball heavy, and he's never really put it together in his time in the majors. So I do like the Diamondbacks. They're much more reasonably priced on Yahoo and FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. But the lineup they ran out is weaker than normal with no Ketel Marte. But you also get some salary relief with Locastro and Vargas at the top. Kevin Crone, I think, is a really interesting play because he does have big-time power. I expect him to be able to put the ball in play here in Coors. So I have Arizona behind Colorado in my stacks in my initial crunch, but I think both sides are, obviously good plays here in Coors.
All right, Alex, quick thoughts on the Diamondbacks before we close this thing out?
Yeah, I think they're a great stack. The team total 6.3 is pretty huge, and the prices are pretty reasonable on all three sites. So I think that I give a green light to anyone going there. The only caveat is that if you go there, you want to have something contrarian going on with the rest of your lineup.
Green light from Alex Baker on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Okay, Dodgers, Mets. Alex, we go to you. Walker Buehler, Noah Syndergaard at Dodger Stadium. Buehler doesn't have the craziest swing and miss stuff, but he is good. He's a high 90s thrower, has a good curveball. And the Mets have one of the lowest totals on this slate for, really, it's not surprising, 3.2 run total outside of the Blue Jays at 2.7. This is the lowest. And the Mets are, still dealing with a good amount of injuries to this starting lineup. I don't think we have one yet. No, we don't have one yet. But we already know they got a bunch of everyday starters on the DL. What do you make of the pitching matchup between Buehler and Syndergaard?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say this is going to be a pitcher's duel, as much as there is one these days. But Walker Buehler is definitely the preferable pitcher because the Mets strike out more than the Dodgers. The team total is almost a run less, and the price tag is comparable on DraftKings. And on FanDuel, it's a little bit closer because Syndergaard has a bigger discount. Syndergaard, I think he's been getting unlucky this year, and he's been blown up a few times, but his xFIP is 3.6. It's even better than Buehler's, so I think there's reason for optimism, but I think that the matchup tonight is a little bit too tough to really go there over some other guys.
Okay, I'm on the same page, not getting to much Syndergaard, and I just don't really think he's, well, you know what? I'll let Adam speak for me. What are your thoughts here on Syndergaard and Buehler?
I like Bueller. I like the spot against the Mets. I like the $9,600 price tag. On DraftKings is, I think, really nice. He's nicely discounted off of Snell. On Yahoo, you get him at 48 compared to, I think, 53 for Snell. So not a huge discount there. I would rather get the Snell. But on DraftKings, I think that the discounts, pretty big between the two of them. Syndergaard, I have no interest in. I don't think he's that good. And I think the Dodgers are really good. I would like to get some Dodgers exposure just because of how good they are and the fact that I think they can potentially do some damage to Syndergaard and they'll be really low owned. But I'm not sure if that'll end up happening for me just because there are so many good stacks that I like.
All right. Any hitters here for you, Adam or Alex, before we close it out and give our top stacks?
Dodgers maybe as an extreme contrarian stack, though they're not very high owned. They have some potential, but below average. But I don't really see any reason why you'd have to go there other than if you're just playing in a really top-heavy tournament.
All right. Makes sense to me. Top stacks here. Adam, what do you have?
Colorado, Atlanta, Philly.
Look at you. Look at you. You were ready for it.
Yeah.
I even saw you look over at something. My man. What do you have? What do you have, Alex?
Not nearly as ready. Hold on. All right. I like Arizona as a. I guess I'll just go with Arizona. It looks like the ownership is low compared to the potential.
All right. Philly, pending weather. It definitely seems sketchy, but I love that spot. Atlanta against Sanchez. And I guess we got to go with Coors, Arizona, and Colorado. I will say, just lastly, Tampa Bay is interesting to me because of Thornton struggles with the long ball and just left-handed power in general. You have, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 6 are lefties for Tampa Bay. So interesting spot there, despite being a Tropicana field. All right, stick around. Coming up next on this Wednesday is Live Before Lock with Josh and Chris. Spags and Engelman taking you till 7:05 Eastern time. Thanks for watching as always. And hey, before you head out, if you enjoy the content, you want to see more, we'd really appreciate it if you hit us with a thumbs up, like the video, because it helps us out greatly, and it really helps support the site and everything we've got going on here at awesemo.com. Subscribe and hit that notification bell as well so you always know when new content's going to drop next. Until tomorrow, good luck, and it's been a deeper dive. It's been a fun one, I'll tell you that much. I'm going to go get some cover and hunker down in the basement. Good luck tonight, everyone.